We are, without a doubt, a species with amnesia. When you look at stories that are making headlines around the world right now with human skeletal remains dating back 300,000 years, which is more than 100,000 years earlier than ever previously discovered. Now, real quick, I was going to make a video on this topic alone, but, look, here's the key takeaway. The skeleton remains that they have found, which is just bits and pieces of a few different bodies, are not exactly the same as modern humans. So, it raises far more questions than answers, and although the story is incredibly interesting, I would rather you just research it on your own, because here's the point that I really want to make, which is, do you wonder why or how is it that modern humans, just as we are today, which we know date back about 150,000 years. There's plenty of evidence of that. There's some evidence dating back 190,000 years. But with this story going back 300,000 years, well, the brainal cavity is not exactly the same. Even the skull is not shaped the same way as we are today. And that's not to say it's not interesting, but here's my point. Why is it in just the last not even 10 generations alone, and by a generation I'm saying 25 years, that we've gone from having almost no technology whatsoever to, going to the steam engine to where we are today? We really are a species with amnesia. Just look at the fact that story, and I made a video on this, but in April of this year, they found those mastodon bones that show evidence of humans existing in North America 130,000 years ago, which is, 115,000 years previously to what we ever thought possible? Let me read you a quote by Graham Hancock. "My sense is that we are missing a huge part of the human story. I think it's possible, indeed probable, that we are a species with amnesia, that we've lost the record of our story going back thousands of years before so-called history began. And I think that if we could go back to that dark epoch, we would discover many astounding things about ourselves." Just think about it. Human history, recorded history, dates back approximately 6,000 years. And there is just so much we don't know about 6,000 years ago. It's full of holes and mystery, and that's just the earliest that we know of where there was human writing and other things. But, so, if you take a generation being 25 years, 6,000 years ago is 240 generations to get from recorded history to where we are today. Now, look at just what we've accomplished in the last 5 generations. From the year 1900 to today, holy crap, has this world changed quite a bit. So the question is, why on earth did it take 150,000 years to get to where we are today? You know what? Let's use a calculator real quick. How many generations ago is it from 150,000 years to today? And again, a generation being 25 years. I don't know if you can see that. 6,000 generations. Holy crap. And if those skeleton remains from, 300,000 years ago, guys, that means 12,000 generations have gone by. And it's taken us this long to get to where we are today when it's only been, not even 10 generations to go from the steam engine to where we are today? If you're not familiar with Randall Carlson, look into him. He has sacredgeometryinternational.com. He has some YouTube videos. This guy is an absolute genius. He does tons of research on geology and various cataclysms that have happened on Earth. And the evidence is overwhelming that indeed the Earth goes through cycles of catastrophe. And what he's identified is that over, say, just the last 150,000 years that we know, humans as they are today have existed, there's been approximately 16 events. There's been at least 16 events that have been so extreme that if they happen today, they would result in the total destruction of at least 1,000 cities, thus, setting back human civilization back to the Stone Age. But to be even more specific and kind of disturbing, there seems to be reoccurring cataclysms every 13,000 years. For example, 26,000 years is when the Ice Age started, and 13,000 years ago is when it abruptly ended. And although these cataclysms, they vary, such as the Toba supereruption that happened 72,000 years ago, or 144,000 years ago, there was the Salian climate shift. We know that there's been at least 5 occurrences of massive changes in global temperature and 400-foot rises and falls of sea level dating back several 100,000 years. But here's where it gets really interesting. Right now, as it is today in 2017, we are in the longest period of time without a major event of this magnitude than there ever has been over the last 150,000 years. So even though there's been 16 massive events over the last 150,000 years that we know humans as they are today have existed, we're in the longest period of time without another one of these events, and there's been 16 over that period of time. So in other words, what I'm saying is that we are long overdue. And again, look into the works of Randall Carlson. But this information is worth sharing. But once you start to dig into this for yourself and fact check this guy, Randall Carlson, holy crap, is he onto something? And it raises so many questions on why isn't the mainstream picking up on this? Now, he's not the only person talking about it, but ultimately the masses aren't aware of this. And it's key, it's so crucial because humanity, guys, look, bottom line is this. We are absolutely going to have another massive cataclysmic event, whether it's a rock from outer space or a, geomagnetic pole shift or who knows what. What we know is that there are cycles of catastrophe here on Earth that seem to happen in cycles. And as you look at this wheel here, this cosmic cycles of 26,000 years, this whole wheel is actually 25,920 years, which is a cycle that was identified by the Mayans. Am I wrong? But there appears to be massive changes in climate every 13,000 years and other smaller changes, although extreme, enough to kill off 1,000 cities, that happen every 6,000 years. So where am I going with this? Well, I'm not saying that we're all going to die. This isn't a doomsday video. I'm not suggesting that something's going to happen in our lifetime. Although I am definitely doing some research. There are some really, really interesting cosmic events happening in 2017. Not just the solar eclipse, but where the star constellations will be in relation to the pyramids and the Sphinx, as well as the fact that you have the sun rising in Sagittarius on the winter solstice, 12/21/2017, which is really interesting because you had the Mayan calendar, all that nonsense from 2012, but there was really no evidence back then to suggest that anything was going to happen. Now, hold on, I'm not saying that something's happening this year. What I'm trying to say is this. For every, just as Randall Carlson said, for every generation that passes by, for every, say, 100 years or so that passes by, let's say, the probability of the next major event just skyrockets. Because again, we're at the longest period of time without a major event than there has been over the last 150,000 years. And we already know that there's been 16 events, so you see where I'm going with this. We're long overdue. So the important thing is that humanity needs to set ourselves up for success, so ultimately when the next major cataclysm happens, we don't have to start over from the freaking Stone Age again. Well, oh my God, like look at what we know about history just going back 6,000 years is pretty, it's been full of war, it's been full of all kinds of issues and nonsense, and it would really, really suck for humanity to have to do that all over again. And although we may not be able to prevent a cataclysm, we can certainly take precautions in order to ensure the survival of the human race. And when I say that, I'm not suggesting that the human race would go extinct from any cataclysm. Honestly, humans are kind of like, forgive me for saying, kind of like roaches. We can, if something happens on the other side of the world, we can be like, holy crap, let me go hide in this cave now. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not worried about the human race going extinct, but rather starting over from scratch for the Stone Age is going to cause all kinds of unnecessary, anguish and pain and suffering for the humans that lie in our future, for our kids, for our grandkids, our great-great-great-great-grandkids. It's going to happen far sooner than we think, and I encourage anyone to leave me a comment with any, investigation they've done, because there's all kinds of things going around the internet about September 23rd, 2017, and all these other things, but all I know is that I'm not a doomsday guy, but I do look at data, and the data shows that there's some really interesting cosmic events happening in the near future, so it's worth looking at. But the bottom line is that every 13,000 years, there appears to be some massive changes in climate. So it's time that we start looking into this. And again, I'm not discouraging people from engaging in climate change debates, but we really need to include what the Earth is doing all by itself without us thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years prior to the Industrial Revolution. I'll leave it at that. Leave me a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are, any information that you have to share on this really interesting topic. But I'll leave it at that. I'm Jimmy. This is Bright Insight. Like and subscribe, and I have many other videos to come on a whole wide variety of topics. Take care, everybody.